All right, headed out of work for the day. I'm gonna have to come back tomorrow on a Saturday, but hey, it will be for veterans. It'll be for the alumni barbecue, and that's always a good reason to come by. So today is gonna be 5 games that I think have the best lore slash story. So this can be kind of more esoteric, more like verbose as far as the game selected. It's not going to be like kind of straightforward. But these are games that, for one reason or another, I mean, these are probably going to be some of my top game choices as well, because I just think that their lore is so good. And number 5 is kind of gonna be kind of like a cheat, because I kind of want to put 2 games here that have much in common. One influenced the other one, but I'm going to go with Triangle Strategy and Final Fantasy Tactics. Obviously, you can see the influence on Triangle Strategy when you play Final Fantasy Tactics. And with that, I think that Triangle Strategy kind of goes more for the realism. Obviously, it's got magic and whatnot, but it does have so much has so much like dealings with kind of like the higher powers, while Final Fantasy Tactics does. But it can also, if you're more into kind of a political spectrum that kind of deals with more racism and more kind of world politics, you might want to choose Triangle Strategy. While you're gonna have a different tale in both, but both are just such great stories that that I can never get enough of, and are easy picks, especially if you're like, man, I just want to play a story game that I can get lost in. These are 2 great picks. Number 4 is going to be Chained Echoes. And Chained Echoes, on surface level, sometimes you're going to deal with stuff that you don't know is so complicated. And then once you start getting into lore and you start digging deeper, it's begging for a sequel, with expanded continents that go much deeper into the lore, with the central conflict kind of taking all place in one area. Definitely reminds me of Game of Thrones with some of the lore aspects, and obviously Final Fantasy Tactics, somewhat Xenogears, Suikoden as well. It's got a bunch of different games kind of wrapped into it. That's why it ranks so high, because it doesn't do anything. It doesn't do nothing with those games. Like, it's not just influence on a surface level or influence through the art or even characters. It's just a much deeper influence that is taking place in Chained Echoes. And the more I play the game, and the more I kind of listen to the lore and see how deep it really is. Again, I can't imagine what a sequel is going to do, and I haven't even played the DLC yet, which again is kind of begging to be played. And really, that first playthrough really digs its claws into you, man, like crazy. That I am always just outstanded that Matthias Linda can do so much in so little, especially with kind of the pixel art. I mean, I think it's the best pixel game ever, because sometimes you forget that it's pixel art, because the lore is so deep and the story is so captivating that you kind of forget about the art style, which is a huge plus. Number 3, I was going back between this and number 2 or number 3, and I only pick 2 over this because it just goes a little deeper, which I don't really care about the deepness, because sometimes that mystery is the greatest part of these games. So, and number 3, I'm going to go with Planescape Torment. You can really get lost, because this has an expanded kind of role-playing universe, obviously with D&D and the Planescape campaigns that you can do. But I think Planescape Torment tells the perfect tale of kind of an individual story with the central plot of Planescape Torment. But obviously, he's lived so many lives that you also get that within the story. Again, I haven't seen any game do this before. I think the only game that I've heard that kind of does this same kind of, honestly, my number one does it as well. But I heard Lost Odyssey kind of plays on this fact as well. But I think that he didn't lose his memory. I think he's just, the central character in Lost Odyssey has just lived for so many years, and it tells the story that way. But Planescape Torment, I mean, again, it's the most well-written game I've ever played, and I honestly, still to this day, obviously it's got critical acclaim, and it's a pretty well-known name in the gaming sphere, but I just don't understand how this game isn't, top 50 games of all time. I also kind of don't get it with Baldur's Gate 2 and Baldur's Gate 3 overlapping this game. I'm sorry. I think if you can, again, complete something in less, then you're just the better version of whatever comes after, with all the bells and whistles. That's my own gaming, or even everything. It's just, again, I think a movie from the 30s or 40s can outmatch a movie from today, or at any era. Doesn't need all the bells and whistles, all the graphics, all the explosions, and all that. It can just tell a story that can resonate. Even when I watched a movie, I remember in theater I watched Streetcar Named Desire, and I just remember taking away wow, that movie was from, sorry if I get this wrong, but I think it was from the 50s. Honestly, it could have been from the 40s or 60s, but I think the 50s. And I really took away its central message much better than I would from several other movies that it was made so long ago. And I think Planescape Torment's kind of the perfect timing of when games were kind of releasing these high-end stories. Obviously, with some other games that are captivating too, but yeah, Planescape Torment's an easy number 3. Number 2 is going to be Dark Souls. I know that you could pick Elden Ring, you can put Bloodborne, you can pick anyone, but I'm not the only one. I mean, this lore video rabbit hole that you can go down with so many different YouTubers. Shout out to obviously VaatiVidya's the big one, and I remember he was huge when I was playing these games, and he was the easy the entry point to it. But then you had Mitch L, you had Smotown, you had David or Mitch L. I don't know if I already just said that. I think I did. Oh man, there's so many more. I'm drawing a blank on them. But Mitch L was always my favorite. He did a lot of great videos on Bloodborne, on Dark Souls 2, and Dark Souls 2 was always a fun one to get into the lore. It wasn't as deep as Dark Souls 1, but Dark Souls 1's lore is just something else. That's why I pick it over Bloodborne. Not, and again, there's so many, it's so close between Bloodborne and Dark Souls, but even the font of Dark Souls, to me, is just so, and I know that's such a random thing, but when I see the font of Dark Souls, I get lost into the miasma of lore, and I just my mind starts going into every single avenue. And the big one for me is always Gwyn and the lore that goes deeper into some of his lineage and some of his relatives. That's always where my brain goes to, where I'm dude, where is that guy? Oh, I know there's some more videos on that, but who is this person? And there's so many of those that you can go deep into, and I just love that about Dark Souls, that you can just you're having a bad day and you're I need my mind to go somewhere, and then you're just, let me just watch the Dark Souls videos and get lost oh my god, what is the one who does the entire timeline? And they release some of the best videos. I think they released the actual best videos on Dark Souls. And they have one on Havel and the Conspiracy. They have the timeline one. They have the best video. They have the best Dark Souls videos. Which is saying a lot because you're going against some titans with that. But again, Dark Souls is not only the gameplay loop is so magnificent, but the lore is even better than the gameplay. And there's only one game I think that I can say that more so, where you've got to have all the pieces. You've got to have all the pieces. You've got to have all of them. And I think games being released at a certain time with all the pieces, like even the Demon Souls remake, I'm like, yeah, see, it just doesn't have the same mystery as the original. So maybe you just stop remaking games. I know you want to remake them for a modern audience, but maybe just re-release them in their perfect state that they're already in with one, you know. My number one, if you're a fan of this channel, it's always obvious. It's gonna be Xenogears. As far as like loop, my brain going on loops, it will loop like Xenogears, Planescape, and Dark Souls like nothing else. My mind just like loops into the lore and loops into between Planescape and Dark Souls and Xenogears, they all have this cycle identity to them, whether or not it be different cycles of civilization or different cycles of the world being destroyed, or a character having big influence and, you know, kind of not remembering but also shifting, you know, the identity of the world that he lives in. And Xenogears kind of does Xenogears again shows in snippets what Planescape shows in dialogue and written word. So we get what the previous actions of the Nameless One is through dialogue and written word, and, you know, throughout the text. But with Xenogears, we see it, and how its influence like directly affects the world. While Planescape, I don't think, has as much direct involvement in the world, because the world has kind of creatures and abominations that also have, and gods. Like it has several gods and deities and everything that also kind of live on the same existence as the Nameless One. Like he's very powerful, and he's lived a lot of different powerful roles in the universe. But in Xenogears, we kind of only have the central figure, and I think with that it kind of tells a better story than Planescape Torment, because I wish Planescape Torment didn't exist in D&D. Like I wish that it was its own standalone, because then it would kind of be contained. But obviously if you play D&D, you know about all these gods and deities and avatars and powerful creatures like the Bahamut, the Tiamat and the Bahamut and the Vecna, and all these random creatures that are super powerful that also live on different planes. Well, Xenogears doesn't do that. You know, it's a story of more, you can identify with it more because of human technology and where it can go, with kind of 2001 Space Odyssey influence in there. And the story is just, you know, it's more streamlined and just telling a current tale, just slightly better than Planescape Torment. But again, they kind of go hand in hand. While Dark Souls doesn't tell the story directly as well, it's also one that you can get lost in the lore and really lose yourself, maybe more than any other series in gaming, where you can just like lose yourself into the lore and fan theories and all that. But if I'm just talking about a contained story within one game, like I don't really like going into Dark Souls 2 and 3, because again, that's kind of cheating, because you're going into several games. Xenogears just tells the perfect story. Again, I've said this previously, but Xenogears tells the story of Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3. Not, you know, verbatim or anything, maybe even relatively close, with kind of 2 taken. Probably the biggest turn from the series, but Xenogears just tells, just a story, and you can just, again, lose yourself in the story completely, and it will affect you later on as well. So appreciate you guys for listening. I always like making these videos. I always, this will be my 140th video. Kind of losing things to talk about sometimes. And I don't really know if anyone's watching these videos. I know some people watch them and 20 views here and there, but I just don't really know. It's kind of weird because I just don't know if there's any engagement or people just watch them real quick or something like that. So yeah, I just don't really know where to go from here. Kind of confused with these videos because especially these ones that are more like, hey, do you want my recommendations or something like that? So again, I kind of made this to talk about what's going on daily. So these videos, I just don't know if people like them. So as always, guys, I appreciate you, and see you next time.